After the publication of his Understanding Media in 1964, Marshall McLuhan became an overnight sensation. Now I've got my second edition copy of Understanding Media right here. And on the cover here, it shouts at me. It says, "The most important thinker since Newton, Darwin, Freud, Einstein, and Pavlov." Now, I don't know if the reviewer meant McLuhan was more important than those guys cumulatively or not. Regardless, it's a pretty bold claim. I envision the reviewer sitting at his typewriter. "Oh yeah, one more thing. Galileo was stupid. I hate him." Whatever. A lot of hyperbole there. Setting that aside, it is an important book. The first chapter starts with McLuhan's most memorable phrase, "The medium is the message." Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that form and content influence one another. The same story is different if you read it in a book and if you see it in a movie. So McLuhan's book looks at all sorts of communication mediums, radio, television, comics, so on and so forth. But two chapters really concern us here, speaking and writing. And I think it's pretty common for people to forget that speaking and writing are different mediums. I mean, we know it intuitively, of course, but a lot of public speaking problems emerge when people treat writing as speech. Ultimately, as speakers, we want to write for the ear, not for the eye. Why? Because speech is a medium of sound. So in this video, I want to talk about three core aspects of speech and how these make speaking different from writing. As human animals, we have inherited the capacity for speech. Birds fly, fish swim, platypuses platypate, and we talk. Over millions of years, our bodies and minds evolved to the point that we communicate with language. The linguist Steven Pinker calls this our language instinct. And the way we acquire speech is fascinating. It's largely a matter of listening, modeling, hypothesizing, and testing. Babies are great little scientists, and they look adorable if you put them in a little lab coat. Oh, baby scientist, have you discovered the molecule for cuteness? Yes, you have. So babies are great at experimenting with language. Toddlers can generate sentences, but the grammar is usually a little off. That's because in English, past tense is pretty tricky. "I go bathroom" is an important phrase for a toddler, and certainly for their parents. But without a mastery of verb tenses, you have to use context. So let's say you're out at a restaurant, the kid turns to you and says, "I go bathroom." The kid's not sitting there going, "You remember the last time I went to the bathroom? Good times, good times." No, "I go bathroom" means get going to the bathroom now. Okay? Now, after a while, kids in English suss out the power of ed for past tense. So they have this new rule, and then they tend to overgeneralize. So you'll hear stuff like, "I goed the bathroom," right? And the parents correct it, and they say, "Well, no, we say I went to the bathroom," and our little scientist modifies his rules. I should point out, this type of overgeneralization even happens with children acquiring sign language as their native language, because that's just how language works. Now, writing, on the other hand, has to be taught. Children do not emerge from the womb with pen in hand. So I have kids, and I didn't teach them how to speak, but I have to help them understand how these strange symbols represent speech. So I got to sit down with them and say, "Oh, no, that's not how you draw a G," or, "Yeah, I know it sounds like you should spell cat with a K, but you don't for some strange reason," and so on. So I have to teach them writing, but I didn't teach them speech. When was the dawn of speech? Well, conservative estimates peg it as recently as about 100,000 years ago. Maybe more expansive estimates go as high as 500,000 years ago, and it's a pretty big margin of error. But it's hard to pin down the exact moment of something that leaves no written traces, which is why dating the beginning of writing is so much easier. Most scholars would put it at about 3000 BCE in Sumer in Mesopotamia, which is in southern Iraq. And despite maybe what an English major might tell you, written language didn't start with noble literature. Writing emerged in response to memory demands. The earliest cuneiform tablets recorded important stuff: holy texts, great battles, and of course, inventory. A lot of early writing was shopkeepers balancing their books. So writing was more of an invention to keep language permanent. Writing needs language. There are no written languages that are not based on spoken ones. Language, however, doesn't need writing. And in fact, the majority of languages have no writing systems at all. So the organization Ethnologue keeps track of all languages, and they estimate the total number of living languages at just over 7,000. And of those, about half of them don't have a writing system. In these languages, no one's illiterate because there is no literate. And that's in the 21st century. Thinking back over the history of language, you can see that literacy is a bit of a rare bird, but speech isn't. Conversational language, what we do every single day, is the norm of language. Everything else, including writing, is a derivation. So what does this all mean? Well, at a deep level, speaking and writing are different mediums. So who gets confused? We all do, and we all get pretty confused pretty often. Okay? We speak more than we write, but we're taught writing more than speaking. And I don't mean that as a criticism. Writing's tough to learn, but it has affected how we approach the spoken word. With a core understanding of the medium of speech, we can explore the linguistic ways to better write for the ear instead of the eye.